an intimate group, so that's lovely. We can have a conversation instead of me just talking the rest of the day. It's my luck. I always end up either just before a lunch break, where people are eager to leave, or first thing in the morning, where people are still tuning in. But you're the lucky few that are here. I'm glad to be here in front of you. My name is Anand Medepalli. I'm the Chief Product Officer at a company called Shippeo. Shippeo, as I will walk you through, is a supply chain visibility provider. So we track shipments, whether they are on a truck or an ocean carrier or rail or air, whether it's a parcel, a full truckload or a less than truckload or containers. We know how to track them, and we basically provide machine learning algorithms that actually tell you if there is any disruptions likely to happen, and if so, what are the likely actions to take. So without further ado, let me jump into it. So everybody knows supply chain executives aren't sleeping really well these days, and the question is why, and what can we do to help them? Oh, come on in, the water is warm, we can jump in. Let's see if this works. Clicker. Okay. Technical glitches continue. The gremlins are still in. Perfect. As I mentioned to you that I'll go up there so now I can see properly.
Just pass me. It's not clicking.
Okay. Okay. So we have been around for about 8 years. We are headquartered in France, so we are a European, born and bred in Europe company. We started our journey with tracking road shipments, and as anybody knows, the fragmentation in the market, the 27 European Union countries that are not really unified in terms of the border crossings, etc. Different countries have different languages, not to mention different rules and regulations that actually make road tracking a significant challenge in Europe. But that's what we understood first, and that's what we spent the first 5 years of our life figuring out and solving. We are a group of about 220 people. We collect data by having connections, deep connections with a whole bunch of systems, whether they're telematic devices or shipping lines or low orbit satellites, what have you. And we have about 200,000 plus connected carriers in our global network that provide us with the data that we need in order to track your shipments. I apologize for this, because I have no idea why this is all messed up like this, but go to the next slide. We have some leading brands as our customers. So we play in retail, manufacturing, automotive, LSPs, and consumer goods. And recently we've had significant success in the chemicals as well. Anybody who needs to ship things in containers, as I said, are potential customers of ours or are customers of ours. And you can see some who's who names are up there. One of our prime customers is Renault, which has the most complex supply chain network, if you will, and we are the trusted providers for them to be able to not only give them visibility into everything that they ship, but also everything that is shipped to them. So both the inbound and outbound visibility, and our platform is a part of their, what they call a control tower, the end-to-end planning and tracking system that they actually use is powered by our capabilities. If you go to the next slide. The good thing about what I really enjoy about my job is how much our customers actually like our platform. They actually like it. So much so that on their own, they go and actually participate in surveys that Gartner publishes on peer reviews, as they call it, and consistently we come out ahead. So that's a big deal for me as a product guy, to know that my product is actually liked by someone. You know, what's the point of making something that people only tolerate and not actually like? And which is why our, the number of customers that leave us is minuscule. I mean, as a SaaS B2B software company, we rank up ahead of anyone in terms of the number of customers that actually consistently stay with us and work with us. Nope, this is not working. If you could hit next. I promise you this is my last marketing slide, to basically say that independent surveys by Gartner also places very close to, we are not in the leaders quadrant yet, this is a magic quadrant, we are very close to that, but this is last year this time. Right now they are evaluating us again, so we are hoping that we will be in the leaders thing. And there is this industry came about in the 2010s, roughly, so the last 7-8 years. So therefore, this category is still building and is now becoming the driver of supply chain management, as I will discuss. If you go to the next one, this is going to be very difficult, mate. If this doesn't work, then I can't. There are a lot of slides here that I need built. It's working now?
Try it.
Let's see.
You have to press it.
Oh, okay. All right. Here we go. All right. Thank you. I'm pressing it. I don't know. I know, I want to go back. You moved forward too much. It's not going back.
Wait, on my hands. Press a little bit harder.
I don't know how much harder to press. I promise you, I even had breakfast this morning.
Okay.
I apologize, ladies and gentlemen. I have no control over this. I can talk from the back there and press my... keep it here. My problem is there are some slides that will build, and you will need to play with me properly. The use cases that visibility, so when you think about visibility, people think about, oh, right, dude, where's my shipment? Tell me where it is, and I'll figure something out. But actually, as time has gone on, this visibility has enabled our customers, and actually in supply chain companies, to do a lot more things than just know where their shipment is at any given point in time. Customer service agents use it to proactively inform their customers and improve customer satisfaction. That's one of the key metrics that we track for our customers. Their customer NPS, their customer satisfaction, is that improving? That's number one. Resource allocation. Renault is a good example of this. If they keep their plant open and idle, they lose thousands of euros a day. So for them to know that their parts are arriving into that plant at a given point in time is super important, because they then have to do their resource allocation plans just in time, knowing when things are arriving, when things are not arriving. Lead time management, similar to that. If there is things that they need to do downstream, to know when the things are coming and how to leverage that information in order to avoid things like dwell times at loading and unloading times. For instance, I was in the US having a similar presentation, and I met the CEO of an organization that actually contracts out truck drivers. So, salt of the earth, these are the people who actually move the supply chain in the US. And every time this CEO was telling me, the biggest challenge that they have is to convince the shippers that they actually delivered stuff on time as promised. And the shipper says, no, you didn't, you were 6 hours late. Turns out the 6 hours was dwell time at the site. They arrived on time, but the lead time was not properly planned, and there was nobody to help them unload the truck. No cranes, no people, nobody. So that is a big deal, and particularly dock management or slot management or such things are being helped by what we provide as a use case for our customers. Freight cost management. This is about, it also goes into actually the invoicing process that we see in, one of our customers obviously subscribe to our technology to track their shipments. But when we talk to them and they present back to us their business case or their ROI studies, they don't talk about how brilliant the tracking is. They talk about what their CFO says is saving them €500,000 a year. And what is that? Now they know exactly, going back to my previous example, they know exactly when a shipment got delivered. They have a timestamp. So the arguments over when it got delivered, whether a penalty was due, whether a chargeback was due, has subsided significantly. But with accurate information, they are able to calculate things and actually push cash flow through the system faster, payments process goes faster, and their chargebacks and penalty conversations have gone down significantly. And that's a freight cost management use case that, honest to God, we didn't think of. We track and we are done on to the next shipment, but they actually were using the information, the data that they have from us to actually deal and solve a pain point in their downstream process. So this has become a huge talking point for us when we talk to customers to say, we finish tracking, but we don't stop helping you with your downstream processes either. So that was the one. And last but not least, sustainability goals. I mean, this is no longer a buzzword. This is a reality. Boardrooms are setting the sustainability goals. My daughter will not buy from a company, and this is a true story. I have 3 kids, God bless them. They are as fashionable as one can get, but they will rather wear old clothes than buy clothes where they didn't realize that the labor standards were substandard or subhuman, or the company doesn't have sustainable practices. This is the generation that is going to be the customers of your organizations. And therefore, they are that invisible customer in a boardroom dictating sustainability goals. And because we have granular data, we know exactly the route taken by a shipment. Why? We collect GPS pings every 2 minutes. We collect ocean low orbit satellite pings from AIS, depending on when in the journey it is, up to every hour, to every half an hour, to every week. Depends, but we know exactly what route, how many miles, how many kilometers has taken. So if a carrier is willing to play with us and give us the engine type, etc., we can be very granular. But even without that, we are able to provide significant input into the carbon footprint at a shipment level. That helps them figure out how to balance their profitability versus sustainability goals. And I'll talk about that in a second. If you go to the next slide, mate. So that was my marketing spiel. I apologize. I have to talk about my company. I love my company, as you can tell, right? Okay, is it working now? Let's try this again, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, fancy. On the arrows. All right, cool. All right, let's try this. Otherwise, you're my best friend today. Oh, can I test now? Oh, yeah. Oh, baby, yes. Ladies and gentlemen, we're back. Supply chain, this is an index. I'm sure you know about this. If you don't, look it up. It's interesting. This came out during the COVID times, Federal Reserve Bank of New York. They created this supply chain stress index. What it means is, how stressed is the supply chain? How panic-ridden should we be looking at the supply chain? You want to be at 0. That means things are balanced. And the good news is they look into things like transportation costs, they measure the supply chain delays in the system, etc. But they also have the PMI, the Purchasing Managers Index, to get the demand in the system, or Procurement Managers Index, the demand in the system. So they look at the supply side and the demand side, and they have an economic model. If you go to their website, you will see that. This data is current as of December. I need to update it because they haven't published it yet. So anything below means slack in the supply chain. And we know those years, if you remember, were those good old years where empty containers were moving back and forth a lot. And if you look at what happened during the COVID era, look at that peak. Now, good news is it's on the down. There's a slight uptick in December, and that was the explicit reason given by them is because of the COVID crisis again hitting China in a big way. China opened up, things will ease a little. Oh no, they didn't. So the point about this is that you want to be at 0. Somebody asked me this in the last, so I'll spare you the question. Do I personally think that will it ever come back to 0? My answer is no. It'll always be hovering just above 0, perhaps, even if we do our best, because some disruption or the other will be hitting us, because headwinds will remain and will continue to remain. I mean, these are headlines, high inflation all the way to stress trading relationships. But the key point is that this was a study done by IBM. They do this C-suite series, and in September of last year, they did a study with chief supply chain officers. across the world. And as you can see, I mean, they have this report. I encourage you to take a look at it. A lot of good information. 51% of those chief supply chain officers said, from now till eternity, we believe supply chains will be continuously disrupted for some reason or the other. There isn't a person in supply chain who doesn't think that to be the case. So that's why I don't think that will ever come down to zero or below zero, because there will be all it takes is somebody to clear out a forest area in the Amazon or in Asia, and who knows, the next pandemic may be upon us, and we might all have to deal with that again. Now we have a playbook, but still, it's a disruption that we'll have to be ready. And it's not an exaggerated claim. This actually was one of the points made in a Financial Times article about potential issues with supply chain. All it takes is somebody to clear a forest out in some part of the world, right? So, but the point is that they use words like shattered supply chains, right? I mean, it may not be shattered, but the fact is that disruptions are here to stay. So what it means is, and again, I apologize for this beautiful rendering of the slides, but what it means is that the supply chain officer's mandate has changed. Their job hasn't changed. They still have to balance supply and demand, but demand was always known as a volatile thing. All you have to remember is the Christmas run or the Black Friday runs, and you know that supply chains got stressed. They had inventory strategies, etc., all that things to be done. What COVID exposed was the fact that the supply side of the equation was also fragile. It was always the case. It just didn't surface up because we always had some way to deal with it. It has surfaced up, and these are headlines as of last week, that some headline or the other, and this one, actually, I took this just the day before they announced it here in the UK, that our car production has been the lowest for the last 51 years, and it's because we can't get the chips and other things. Of course, I don't want to get political, but we also need strong leadership to be able to figure this out. But that said, this is a significant issue in one of the biggest industries in our lovely country. The reality is we are going to struggle with that. So therefore, the supply side shocks are there. They have to balance supply and demand under increased volatility on both sides to guarantee that they're going to be profitable, or the profitability metric is there. But that's not enough anymore. They have customer satisfaction. We all have the Amazon effect in us. If we expect something to be delivered, it needs to be there. And it's not, Renault, as I mentioned earlier on, wait for parts to arrive at their plant. If it doesn't appear, that day they have lost thousands of euros. Right? So therefore, customer satisfaction is key. If you say something is going to come, so the just-in-case inventory strategy of the last 3 years is now getting replaced by a back-again just-in-time. The inventory levels were, as of 6 months ago or 4 months ago, the container price index has come down as well. And part of the reason actually was usually the inventory to sales ratio is 1.2 historically, if you look at it. In other words, you have a 20% buffer in your inventory. Over COVID and till September of last year at least, that was about 1.5. So people kept 50% inventory in their buffer. Now they don't do that anymore, and it's coming down. Part of the reason why demand, or rather the stress on the supply chain has eased, because people are not ordering as much because they want to get rid of that excess inventory that exists in their buffers. Anyway, customer satisfaction is key. So in other words, if I don't have just-in-case inventory and I rely on quote-unquote just-in-time inventory, better be there when I ask for it. Employee experience. This is something that people are not discussing very much to my chagrin, personal chagrin, because the employees are my daughter, the example that I gave you. These are the TikTok generation, right? They are comfortable with making decisions. They're comfortable with sharing information. They're comfortable throwing things together and creating an app for themselves, whether that app is a report that you need because your boss asked you for an S&OP meeting, or whether it is to deal with a customer satisfaction issue because you have to give an answer and make a decision on the spot. Used to be the case that they could just go around the corner, knock on their boss's door and say, ooh, this happened, what do I do? And they collectively figured something out. That was possible in the past because those disruptions were far and few in between, number one. You all worked out of the same building. Now it's a hybrid workforce. And there are thousands of disruptions a day. Even if you were working next to your boss, how many do you think a person can get through? So the employee experience can get very frustrating really fast. Who wants to go home knowing that out of the 1,000 things I had to do today, I only could get to 10? Nobody wants to do that. We all have a zero inbox mentality. None of us gets to that perhaps, but at least we want to feel that, good Lord, for the money they're paying me, I'm able to do something. That employee experience is going to be super important because this is the generation of great resignation, if you remember. They're not coming back saying, I'll do whatever you want me to do. They are coming back on their terms. And one of their terms, ladies and gentlemen, is give me systems I can work with. Make me autonomous. Centralized supply chains should now become decentralized by definition. Hybrid workforce, I'm working from home. How am I going to make a decision with an irate customer if your system doesn't give me all the information and I don't know everything? I talked about sustainability. We'll talk about it more. And finally, resilience. This is now a buzzword. Obviously, everybody uses it. But the fact of the matter is that customer satisfaction, employee experience, and balancing profitability with sustainability while supply chain is fragile is a tall order. So it all distills down to supply chain resilience as the number one priority. If I know how to be resilient, I can meet those things, says the C-suite. Right? That's what, number one, supply chain resilience is identified as the risk. The previous study I showed you, 51% of them believed disruptions. What does resilience mean, by the way? It doesn't mean give me a supply chain that never breaks. Nobody's asking that. What they're saying is, we know disruption. If 51% of us think that disruptions are about to happen, how can I say that my supply chains are not going to bend or break? They will. Question is, how agile are you to jump back up? How quickly can you make a decision? How quickly are you able to disseminate information so that your frontline employees are able to make a decision? How quickly is your system able to collaborate with your trading partners to resolve a potential issue? At the end of the day, a driver is driving a truck and he has a breakdown, or got caught up in traffic, or got caught up in a border crisis. So it's a joint problem for the shipper and the carrier to solve that problem. Are there alternative strategies to take? How resilient am I to resolve the issue? Nobody talks about why did the truck break down. They say, okay, now what? What do I do now? Okay, if it comes 2 days late, it's not a problem because I've got enough inventory. So what? No problems. Don't do it again. But my goodness, the plant is going to lie idle. I need an alternative thing. Okay, put it on a plane and send it here. I know there's an extra cost, and I have to balance it out against future payments or whatever, right? Some strategy has to be done. I'm not saying nothing. I'm saying nothing new. All I'm saying is the velocity with which you have to make such deep decisions is like that. I'm terrible at this, by the way. I want to be dramatic, but I end up being a joker. And 79% of the companies consider supply chain visibility as the main driver to achieve resilience. So how can you achieve what I just said about resilience? You can, if you know that the truck broke down when it broke down, not when you're supposed to receive the part and you're looking at your watch going, oh, maybe I'll give him 5 more minutes. Where is he? And you call and you go, oh, 2 days ago the truck broke down? Are you kidding? Why couldn't you tell me that before? You can do something about it. You can be resilient if you know. There's a famous saying, right? You can't improve what you can't measure. You can't fix what you don't know. And visibility is about that. And visibility, we think about visibility in the context of, at least in Shippeo, and this whole category of supply chain visibility came about saying, we will track your shipment 2 hours before the shipment is due on its journey, and we'll track till about 2 hours after, so that you have end-to-end journey visibility, transportation visibility. And that's where we started, right? This is days to hours ability to do that, and you collect a lot of data. We collect GPS pings every 2 minutes. I just checked with my CTO. We roughly collect about 6 billion data points a year. 6 billion. And at any given point in time, our platform handles 2 billion on a rolling basis. That's a lot of data we collect. So we use machine learning to make sense of it, separate the noise from the signal from the noise, and give you the right predictions, et cetera. And our predictions are well known. As I pointed out, our customers love us for that reason. We contractually obligate ourselves with that accuracy. So we got really good at that. But we know that resilient supply chains are not just about the last mile. You have to go to the middle mile. Why is that disruption happening all the time? That means something in your design and planning or in the middle mile has not been thought through clearly. There's a famous philosopher who said that everybody has a plan till they get punched in the mouth. Does anybody know who that famous philosopher is? Mike Tyson. Who knew? He was very clever and very smart. That's what this is, right? This, if you put a plan in place and you know it's already wrong. So what can we do from here to inform these people so that they have plans and scenarios when it goes wrong? And then why stop at the middle mile? The visibility has to continue into the first mile, where you're deciding upon your suppliers. In fact, there was a study done right after COVID disruptions to understand what could have prevented, what could have helped manufacturers get back on their feet. This was focusing on manufacturers, Western manufacturers, Europe and America. And you know what the root cause or one of the main findings was? That if only they knew they could have come back faster, if only they knew their tier 2, tier 3 suppliers. They knew their tier 1 suppliers in China, but China shut down, they didn't know who the tier 2, tier 3 were. If only they knew, they could have come back online faster, was the conclusion of that study, which means that visibility at the transportation level is correct and the operational side of the equation, but the tactical side of the equation, namely the plans that set that into motion and the strategy of your network and your suppliers, etc., determines the plans that you need to do. Now, the cadence between planning and execution has shrunk significantly. Used to be you could play golf between your plans and execution. You can't anymore. S&OP used to be a monthly process. It's a daily process in a lot of organizations that I know. How can you have an S&OP process on a daily process? What are you planning on a daily basis? But you are, because this has shrunk to days to hours, and this has shrunk to weeks to days. It used to be months here. So therefore, the strategy to execution and back is a very quick turnaround. So which means that control tower technologies like Shippeo, digital twin technologies that our partners offer or others offer, which help you plan and look at alternatives and have scenarios in mind when a disruption takes place, are one and the same technology now, powered by the same source of truth, data that people like me collect for you. What happens when the rubber literally meets the road? That's the definition of visibility that you have to look at. Okay, whatever that is. So the point about that is that, therefore, you need to have a multimodal system of information that is able to collect across all your shipment types, all your modes, etc., and create high quality information, and then create, going back to my employee experience point, create a system of engagement where you can act on it. System won't, I'm a mathematician. I have built models all my life. For the past 5 years, I've only done artificial intelligence and machine learning work. And I'm the first one to tell you that I'll always be wrong in my predictions. It could be a career limiting statement if my boss was in the room, but it's true. All predictions are meant to be wrong at some point or the other. That's not the issue, though. There's no drama about that. That's true. The drama has to be if you don't know what to do about it. And that's why a multimodal system of information has to do its best effort to get you the best information possible. But should you have to do something with it differently than what the system is saying, you need to have a system of engagement so that the system can learn. So it is a self-fulfilling system of the future that we need to talk about if we want to solve the problem of end-to-end visibility, which in turn will solve the problem of resilient supply chains. Okay? So, again, I don't know what the title says, but what that translates to in terms of a system is, in your mind, you have to think about having a global and multimodal network, because that's where the data is. Doesn't matter whether you talk to us about this or not. Amongst yourselves, if you're talking, you have to have data in your hands. Just before I walked in, I was talking to a professor from Leeds who said that a shipper came to them, to the University of Leeds, to say, hey, you guys have a supply chain department, you know what you're talking about, build us a model that can provide us inbound visibility for our work. They couldn't, not because they didn't have the smarts to build the algorithms. Actually, algorithms are no longer the exciting thing. It's the data that feeds the algorithms that is missing. You have to have that, and that's the network. Data intelligence, This is billions of data points. If a company like ours is collecting 6 billion data points a year, good Lord, we better have some machine help. Machine learning is important. And then if you want to get that end-to-end visibility all the way from the last mile to the first mile and back in a fast turnaround, and a system that excites your users to know that they are able to influence it fast, you need to have this concept of transportation process automation, which is this automating those mundane human processes so that people can focus on the exceptions and unleash their creativity in solving a problem for their customer, as opposed to spending a lot of time. And this is true even today in some big companies where they're still spending a lot of time just collecting data. When will they get to analysis and when will they get to resolution if they're spending a lot of time collecting data? And perhaps it resonates with you because we always see this happen. So these things can be automated, giving the power to make decisions as you go along. And we are not, we don't have that hubris, or we are humble enough to know that this is also not a one vendor or a one solution play. It's an ecosystem play. I'm not here telling you that we will build a supplier management solution. We'll never do that. We have partnerships, but you have these capabilities. If you're a supply chain organization, how many of you are in supply chain organizations? And how many are here because you wanted to just see me? Okay, all of you are in supply chain organizations. So you have these solutions, or at least something along these. You have processes to do that. You manage your suppliers, you do your planning, you manage your execution, you have TMSs, you have freight audit and pay, you have warehouses and slot management requirements. If you're a retailer, your store management requires slot management, customer portals so that your customers can know where their shipments are, CRMs, control tower digital twin like the one that I'm talking about, whether it's an Excel spreadsheet or a fancy system, doesn't matter, but you are tracking your shipments at any given point in time. And of course, carbon footprint management. You do this today. What you're suffering from is the information that is to go into those systems is not consistent, they are in different silos, and three, you don't know if you can trust that quality of that data that's going into those. So our mission, frankly, is to provide data to enable or unlock the true value of all these investments of yours. And we bring some to you ourselves, like the carbon footprint management. I gave you a case study of our customers whose freight audit and pay process has improved significantly because we did what we had to do. So it's time for a paradigm and a mindset shift, right? So you have to stop thinking about your fancy planning systems and all those things. Those are still needed, but that's not where your thinking has to begin. Your thinking has to begin with where the rubber meets the road, the edge, right? IoT devices, RFID chips, etc., have come of age now. Unit economics are good so that you can actually track anything that you want. I know that pharma, for instance, high-value goods that they have come with inbuilt, out of the manufacturer's box, come with inbuilt trackers. I know of a case where they delivered this MRI machine to a hospital. Everything was fine. They got signed off, and they didn't know where in the hospital was that machine. But they could find it because the tracker turned itself on, and they were able to track it. So it's important to have that edge computing in your mind. The systems that you have, the systems that I personally built as well, by the way, I put my hand up, are no longer fit for purpose. Used to be, the systems are all database-oriented. They're batch-oriented. You collect a lot of data for the day. You go home to sleep. The system works overnight, updates the plans, and you come and you execute again. But then all the disruptions, 1,000 disruptions of the day, went unanswered. So that architectures have to be upgraded to streaming architectures. The first time when we go to a supply chain organization, the CIO, the CSCO, both talk the same language to us. They're delighted because our architectures, by definition, are streaming architectures. Each event, every minute happens, we immediately can grab that information, and if it needs to be updated in the system, we update it, we inform people. Extensible data models, because new data is going to hit us at all times. Just as we got comfortable with the data that we have, we are now being told that, hey, social media data on ChatGPT. How is that reality going to change your world? You know what ChatGPT can be used for? Go talk to your teams about this. You have to map data from A to B. You could use ChatGPT, or at least the underlying technology of natural language processing, to be able to figure out that field means this in this system, and being able to map those. Extensible data models, notifications and workflows, AI/MLs, control tower, digital twin, and of course, system convergence. And create problem-solving apps. Some we will produce, some our partners will produce, some you will have. But here's the beautiful thing. With self-help, your next generation employees are citizen developers. They are not afraid to create an app for themselves. Can they drag and drop and create an app? This is the low-code, no-code world. You don't need to do programming, need to know programming in order to create a program. How crazy is that? That's the world we are living in. That's the world we are in. My colleague and I gave a webinar earlier this week. His daughter is a medical student. She's studying medicine. But she knows how to code in Python. She just learned it along the way. She can do that. As a doctor, she can come and do this. One of the first use cases that ChatGPT became famous for was a physician, a surgeon in Houston, Texas. He put out a TikTok saying, oh my God, look at this ChatGPT. I have a patient who has got this condition, and I have to write this entire document to convince the insurers. As you all know, in the US, it's the insurers that determine whether you get that treatment or not, and the doctors have to submit a justification. He went to ChatGPT and said, this is the condition, write me a letter to an insurer with citations of all possible things that I need to cite, and in 2 seconds later, he had the letter. This is a physician who never touched a computer, he says in his TikTok. Ladies and gentlemen, if you don't pay attention to employee experience and the next generation systems, you're not paying attention to customer experience. You're not paying experience to customer experience, you have to close shop. We know that. So that means that the systems have to evolve from being ERPs to TMSs that came about in 2000s. I mean, remember when ERPs were the sexiest beasts on earth? No longer, right? They're just a system of record now. Boring, clunky things that collect data, with all due respect to my ERP friends, by the way. We came along and we did transportation visibility, and we are admitting ourselves that we are disrupting ourselves by saying even we, who are at the cutting edge of supply chain management software, actually have to evolve to be the transportation process automation software. And there's no choice here. There's no choice for you, no choice for us. If you are serious about giving your chief supply chain officers some well-deserved rest at night, that is. If you don't care about that, just keep doing what you're doing. Irritate the hell out of that person. Ladies and gentlemen, that's me. I'm happy to take any questions. Nobody had coffee yet. Oh, man. But do you believe this? I mean, do you think that what I'm saying makes sense? Do you see the urgency that I see in your own organizations? No, you don't?
Yes.
You do?
I think it's quite interesting though when you say that I think there's still organisations that I wrote down here, the ERP is just a system of information. But there's companies that are just implementing that now. So how can you skip that to get to the other bit that you were talking about, the
Transportation process automation. It's a very fascinating question. We get asked that a lot. In fact, we don't get asked much about ERP per se. They ask, hey, we are implementing a TMS at this point. Should we wait till we get visibility? Our answer is, listen, whatever makes business sense for you, you do. We are not stupidly aggressive about wanting to shoo us in. But if you ask me as an objective person, my question is, you do need those systems, by the way. You do need a system of record. You do need a system of planning. We are not here to replace any of that. But you need a system of action. You have no choice about that. So the challenge, the challenge that we throw back at our customers is that explain to us how you are how you're able to live without a system of action when your entire day is now full of action. You can't wait for a batch process to run and give you information. Your customers are screaming at you. Your employees are, I want my kids to be excited about supply chain management. I came into supply chain management because I was a mathematician and I was a geek, and I knew that the underlying mathematical problems were too beautiful to pass up on. Forecasting and optimization was a happy place for me. I admit it, I am a geek, guys. But my kids don't get excited by that. They get excited by, and I honestly will tell you this, they get excited by the fact that supply chain management is a frontline news. It's a kitchen table discussion point. I'm getting the signal that I should cut this short. Well, my wife says that to me all the time. It's become a frontline news, so much so that my kids are seeing this as, oh, maybe we should get involved to solve this because this is what is making the world move. They're not trying to solve it because they want fashionable clothes faster. They are thinking about it as something that we should be doing. At least my second daughter is. She's studying economics, and she's fascinated by the supply chain world to basically say, you know what, that is something that I could be interested in. So my point to you is, how are you going to satisfy that if you're taking a yesterday's technology to put in front of them? You put an Excel spreadsheet and numbers in it, I will be your best friend. Not my children, who you will actually employ. You won't employ me. So it's a hard question to answer. But you need both the starter and the main course and the dessert to feel satisfied, and you got to figure that out. And we are happy to have a conversation about how to make that happen. Did I see a hand up there? Yeah.
Yes, one more question on my side. I think what you present really makes sense. What troubles me is you have a great idea, another company has another great idea, and then the market becomes fragmented and we have to choose between who supplies which part and how are these systems connected. So what is your company and similar companies do to make this fragmented market into one and interconnected systems, so we don't have to choose between systems, everyone is connected, so no matter with who we go, there will be some advantages and with each different company, but we don't have to worry that, oh, that carrier doesn't use that system or that customer doesn't want that system.
So I have two-phrase answer. First of all, we strongly believe in this play. In fact, so much so that we invite our direct competitors to play with us. Not to collude, but in fact, we have customers who have my direct competitor to cover one part of their geography and us to cover another part of their geography. But the chief supply chain officer is not thinking, I'm an American today and a European tomorrow. He's thinking, how are my global flows going through? And he has to touch both systems. We are super open to say, here are our APIs. We will publish it to them, say, just integrate and let us surface it up to the chief supply chain officer, because our job is that person's happiness, not our satisfaction. So that's number one. So we strongly believe in that. We are super open to anything that needs to be done because we believe in helping customers get their jobs done. Nobody wakes up in the morning thinking, exciting day, guys, I'm going to go use Shippeo today. No customer of ours says that. They're saying, exciting days, guys, I'm going to solve my customer's problem is what they say. And they need Shippeo for one part of their day. They need somebody else another part of the day. I am constantly thinking about how do I make their day seamless. So to your point, that is where, honest to God, folks like you and your customers are going to force us to go there. I'm already there in my mind. So that's number one. Number two, technology and integrations. If anybody spends even 2 minutes with you to say, oh, those integrations are difficult, throw them out. They really don't know what they're talking about. We integrate with anything in days. In some cases, within hours, we are ready to rock and roll. Within 2 days, we can start tracking your shipments. You tell us today, 2 days later, your first container is already tracked in our system. Not because we have done anything spectacularly brilliant, even though my team will tell me they did. It is because we have all these integrators in place. In one of the previous slides you saw, we have 200,000 carriers already in our system. Now, some of those are already on other people's systems as well. It's true. We have about 1,000 connections with TMSs and telematics, et cetera. So we always get surprised that there's somebody new, but within a week, I mean, we are up and running, and integration is not a problem, but you nailed it. If you don't push that point, that won't happen. If that doesn't happen, goodbye resilience. There's just no shortcut here. We all have to be in it because we care about making sure that the supply chain analyst or the transportation analyst or the supply management analyst, their job is getting done during the day. Otherwise, none of us have a business in being in this world.
Question.
So, have you done much work in public sector? The reason I ask, so I work for NHS supply chain, and we distribute in the main to England, all healthcare providers in England. We have over 1,000 suppliers, manufacturers on our frameworks, and we have over 600,000 different products listed on our catalogue. I think I'm probably the only clinical nurse in the room, and my interest in this...
Thank you for what you do.
But my interest in this, you talked about this, is about resilience, and a lot of the challenges we're having at the minute is around that visibility of product, and fundamentally lack of product impacts on continuity of care delivery, which is a patient safety risk.
Yes.
So taking all that, you talk, I think what my reflections, having been a nurse for 30 years, is that within public sector, we are information rich, we are data rich, information
Poor, yes.
because we don't have all that joined up. So I'd be interested, maybe not for now, but having a conversation about how all of those systems join up, because it's not just from a national level where we have different systems, it's down to those micro levels of resilience at the operational, organisational level where there's that variation and that visibility of actually where is the product and actually is it going to impact on patients having procedures. We can't, it's very, very difficult to plan, and clinicians are having to adapt daily because we don't have product and its impact on patients. So
No, this is a very well understood use case. If nothing else, it's a noble thing for us to actually have a conversation with you to see how and if we can help, for sure, absolutely. I don't know if we have done public sector work per se. We work with the French Postal Service, so if you call that public sector, it is public sector. But that said, we know the problem you're talking about. We understand the use case well. It's just a matter of figuring out exactly how we could help. But yes, something that definitely let's talk. Let me give you my card so that we can have a conversation.
thank you.
I got a lot of cards, by the way, if anybody wants. Nobody wants cards these days, do they? I mean, so it's good. Well, listen, I'm getting the signals that we are out of time. We have a booth in the main area. Please stop by, because even if, I mean, forget about the system, etc. We all need to have a conversation about supply chain and what the next generation supply chain looks like, not just for the supply chain's sake, but for the people, our kids who are going to come into this world. And what can we do to do better? So I'm always open to having conversations, so please make it a point to. We're all here all day. We are Shippeo, and my name is Anand Medepalli. It's a delight to be here today with you all.